Hi, I'm Erica Larson, presenting on Barriers to Web 2.0. And I did just go ahead and summarize all the resources that we went through. So let me skip ahead to how they relate to me. They gave me a more structured understanding of Web 2.0, what it is, and the ins and outs of it, the benefits, the potential harmful effects or concerns that we should be considering as we use it. It also helped me understand the differences in progression for both elementary and secondary. I work in an elementary school and a middle school, and I worked the gamut from pre-K through 12. So this was interesting for me, and I think as an administrator, it will be important for me to understand this as well. It reiterated, or the articles reiterated, the necessity of having a clear vision and how that vision and implementation fits into the larger system that you're working within. Also, it helped me understand better what technology adoption means whenever you're looking at instructional practices, and also related to that, changes in curriculum options. And this is especially relevant to my vision in the recent assignment that we had for class. I'd really like things to be hands-on, to be kind of real world, to help students prepare for what they're going to be expected to do in life. And that's exactly what Web 2.0 does. And also, reading about this in depth was helpful for me to further development what I want to happen within my vision. It was kind of vague what I wanted within my vision. Learning more about the technology part of it has helped me to better understand exactly what that would look like. Do I believe the digital divide can be resolved? I think this is kind of a loaded question, and I'll explain why. I think over time, yes, but there's some caveats here. So first, we need to consider what the digital divide is, and that's where students who typically lower income do not have access to technology outside of school, also don't have access to it, or at least sufficient quality access to it in school. So the combination of lack of access across life um, causes them to not be prepared to adequately engage in and be qualified for different life tasks and expectations, especially professionally. So whenever we look at the digital divide in that manner, over time, technology is going to become more commonplace. So like right now, a good portion of the United States doesn't have access to technology. Over time, I think that it's kind of like, I mean, I get that utility systems is one thing that was compared, like the power grid was discussed in articles. That's, I guess, more of a necessity to live than technology. So there's a little bit different push in that manner. But I do think that over time, technology is just going to become cheaper and more commonplace. And so, in that sense, I think that access will become more equal. And as access becomes more equal, probably the quality part will hopefully become a little more equivalent as well. Um, because if the schools have access to it, then they can learn the quality over time. And as quality becomes more a way of doing things, more commonplace, then I do think that it's possible that it could be resolved over a long period of time. But once we have consistent implementation of technology, here's the caveat, is further stratification going to occur, but just under a different classification. So now everybody has technology, but maybe those who have access to more advanced technology versus maybe less advanced, whatever that ends up being at the time, whenever everybody has access to technology, who knows what the world will really look like then. Um, it could just cause further stratification. So I guess, is it really resolved or is it not? I guess that depends on how we conceptualize what the digital divide is. So it's kind of, like I said, a tricky question. And maybe the digital divide will still exist. It'll just look different because technology will be so much more advanced. So again, goes back to the definition of digital divide. Skills 21st century students that are at the K-12 level must acquire. I think that kind of the overarching theme of what they must acquire is the ability to be able to gain information through technology. They need to be able to problem solve using technology. They need to be able to create products using technology, not just things that they construct because it's kind of fun, but they need to be able to actually utilize searches and resources and processes through technology to create a product that somebody else has assigned to them. That's essentially what jobs are going to require of them someday. And they also need to be able to effectively collaborate with others utilizing technology throughout the process. So within that involves they need to have good knowledge of technology, and also the reasoning behind it as specifically applied to technology to be good, meaning ethical digital citizens. And I think I purposely mentioned the permanent record of growing up with technology here because, you know, I grew up, and probably a lot of us in this class, with less technology, and we kind of saw technology grow into a big, very common thing. And the transparency involved with technology was maybe a little scary for us because we knew life without that transparency. But whenever you have kids who are growing up with that technology and they don't know any different, they're learning about transparency along with being on technology. We had kind of already learned about those boundaries before technology was a thing, before we had to apply the boundaries to technology. So kids are making mistakes. I mean, and they're right on technology for it to happen. So I think that they need to learn from a very early age, explicitly learn what boundaries with technology and also regular life, but specifically with technology are and why they're important and the ramifications of them. They also need the skills to engage with technology. So by engage, I mean the social interaction I was talking about, but also to navigate technology. And there I also said the ability to navigate productively. The global economy impact on my internet use. This was kind of a tricky question for me to think about because I've always had basically always had access to some technology. We got a computer, my family did, in the early 90s. I think I was second or third grade. I mean, it was probably like 90, 91, 92 at the latest. Um, so, and I've kind of just grown up with it. And I know having a computer then was earlier than a lot of my friends had one. I'm a US citizen. As I typed that, I thought, yeah, we're a very privileged society. But then I think back to reading about the digital divide, and it's like, wow, I take for granted the technology that's always been in my life that I'm learning is more scarce than I actually realized. And I've got the middle class bias that we just kind of have what we need, and it's just there, and it always has been, and probably always will be. So I know that's my little world, though. So how does the global economy impact me? Well, I mean, I'm privileged enough to grow up in a country where I have access to things. That's where I put the US citizen initially, and then I thought about, oh, digital divide. So this is a tough question for me, but I guess the global economy living where I live has enabled me, broadly being in the US, but also within the specific place in the US that I've grown up and in kind of, I guess, a middle class family, I've just always had internet access. So, but I guess with considering all the resources that we reviewed for this, it's good for me to be cognizant of my own bias and my own experiences, and now realizing how different that is from a lot of people's, a lot more people's than I realized. And maybe that was the point of the question. So maybe I did effectively answer this question. Technology training that I need for my current position. Well, my current position is school psychologist, but thinking in terms of an administrator as well. I mean, for both positions, updated knowledge and skills